Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing some more quick and easy dinner ideas, and these are going to be perfect if you have a large family. These are definitely going to feed a crowd or give you a lot of leftovers, and they're also a lot of our family favorites, so definitely make sure you stay tuned if you want these recipes. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you. I share a lot of really quick and easy recipes on my channel, crockpot dinners, and other food related content. So definitely make sure you're subscribed if you are interested. And let's go ahead and get into all of these dinner ideas. For this first dinner, I'm making a one-pot beef stroganoff. I have been making this stroganoff for years and it's our family favorite. So I'm starting off with 1 pound of lean ground beef, and then I'm adding in 1 large onion that I have chopped up. And I'm just gonna cook this until all of the ground beef is browned up and the onions are nice and translucent in color. After the beef and the onions had cooked through, I'm just adding in a big scoop of minced garlic, and then I am also adding in my mushrooms at this time. So the original recipe calls for fresh mushrooms, but I always like to just add a little over 1 can of the sliced up mushrooms in the can. It's just a little bit easier and you don't have to cook them as longer, and a little bit less prep too, so that's what I always do. Once those have cooked for just a couple of minutes, I'm adding in 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, along with about 4 cups of beef broth. You can also use beef bouillon too with water and make your own broth just to make it a little bit cheaper. And then for seasonings, I'm adding in half a teaspoon of black pepper, along with 1 teaspoon of some salt. And then I'm just gonna bring this up to a boil before adding in my pasta. And because this is a one-pot meal, we're able to just cook the pasta right in this broth. So I'm adding in 4 cups of wide egg noodles. Mine always take around 15 minutes to cook. I think the original recipe says 20, but I would say check them a little before that because you don't want your noodles to be too soft, but you are gonna turn your heat down to low, pop the lid back on there, and then mine take about 15 minutes to cook over a low heat. Once the noodles are fully cooked, you're gonna want to add in a 1/4 cup of cream cheese, along with a 1/4 cup of sour cream, and you're just gonna let all of this melt into the pasta. You should have the heat off at this point so none of the dairy will curdle, but just go ahead and get all of that mixed together, and then that is pretty much it. You can always add a little bit of salt and pepper, but this is seriously one of our all-time family favorites. I love this one. We make it all the time, and I think you guys would really enjoy it. For this next dinner, I'm making a chicken hash brown casserole, and this is kind of a spin-off of the Cracker Barrel hash brown casserole, but I like to add chicken in here. So here I have 2 chicken breasts that are cut up, and I'm just seasoning up with some paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, as well as some salt and pepper. And then I'm just gonna saute all of this up in olive oil until the chicken is fully cooked through. And then I am also adding in an onion here. You could let the onion cook in with the casserole in the oven, but I just like to saute mine a little bit before adding it into my casserole. So I'm just gonna cook that up until the onions are nice and translucent in color. Now once my chicken had fully cooked through, I just removed my skillet from the heat, and I'm adding in 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, along with 1 cup of sour cream for some extra creaminess. And then I am also adding in 1 can of rotel tomatoes. Now if you don't want to do this, you can totally skip this step, but I like to add a little bit of extra spiciness in there. And then I'm also adding in half a teaspoon of black pepper, half a teaspoon of some salt. You can add a little bit more salt if you want to, but I always figure that I can add extra salt later on if I want. I'm giving this a quick mix together before adding in my shredded cheese. So for shredded cheese in this dish, I would say I'm adding in about 3/4 cup of cheddar cheese here, and then I'll top it with a little bit more later on. But for now, I'm giving that a quick mix together. And then for hash browns, I'm using about 20 ounces of hash browns here, and they are frozen. So you can use fresh or frozen, either will work just fine. I add a couple tablespoons of butter, like 3 to 4 tablespoons, and then I'm just gonna mix all of this together before adding it into my casserole dish. For this dish, I'm using a 9x13 casserole dish, and I'm just spraying that with a little bit of oil so nothing will stick to it. And then I'm taking that hash brown mixture and just spreading it right into the bottom of my pan. And I will also be adding on a layer of some cheddar cheese for some extra flavor, and I like to let that brown up on top. I usually will cover mine up with a layer of tin foil, and then I'll bake it at 350 degrees for about like 45 minutes to an hour. I like to remove the tin foil during the last 15 minutes, and then I usually will pop it under the broiler for a couple of minutes as well. But this is what it ends up looking like. It's super good, really easy to throw together on a busy weeknight, and it will definitely serve a crowd. For this next dinner, I'm making a creamy chicken pesto pasta, and this turned out so good. I'm just starting off by heating up my large skillet with a little bit of olive oil, and then I'm adding in 2 chicken breasts that I cut into bite-sized pieces, and I'm going to be cooking these up. I am going to be seasoning them with just some Italian seasoning as well as some salt and pepper. I added about 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. I will say I did go ahead and double the recipe, but I will have this full recipe linked down below. But you're basically just going to want to go ahead and pan fry this chicken until it is fully cooked through. While that chicken is cooking up, I am just getting my pasta boiling. I'm actually using rigatoni pasta on this night just because we are all out of penne pasta, but that would definitely be the best one to use for this dish. But use whatever you have on hand and it should be just fine. And then back over to my skillet, all of my chicken is done. So I'm just removing that over to a separate pan, and I'm going to be using this same skillet to mix up my sauce. Now into my skillet, I'm adding in about half a stick of butter or 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm just letting that melt down before adding in my flour. So this is 6 tablespoons of just regular all-purpose flour, and I'm going to be making a roux. So I'm just taking my whisk and mixing all of this together, and I'm going to let this cook up for close to 3 minutes. It's going to change colors. It's going to turn more of like a dark golden brown. You'll see what I mean here in just a second, but then we're going to be gradually adding in our chicken broth. So this is about 2 cups of chicken broth, and you don't want to add it all in right away. You're going to kind of gradually add it in there and get it mixed in very well. I'm also adding in some heavy cream. So the recipe called for about 2 cups of cream, but I chose to only add in about 1.5 cups just because that's what I had on hand, and it seemed like plenty to me. So I don't think you need the full 2 cups. It's totally up to you, but I'm just getting that gradually mixed in there as well. After that sauce has thickened up nice, we're going to be adding in the cheese. So this is 2 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese, and then I also have 1 cup of Parmesan cheese, along with about half a cup of some basil pesto. Now the recipe called for a full cup of pesto, but I thought that sounded like a ton, and my husband is not a huge fan of pesto. But I added in about half of it, and I honestly thought it was perfect. So I would start with adding a little bit less, and then you can always add in a little bit more if you want more of that pesto flavor. And then you're just going to take your pasta and your chicken and get all of that mixed in there. This is a very cheesy, ooey gooey, really delicious pasta. I loved the flavor in this pasta with the pesto. It was so good, so creamy and delicious. I think you guys would really enjoy this one. We had some pesto left to use up on hand, so this was perfect to use up in this recipe. If you are a fan of pesto, then I think you would really enjoy this recipe. Our family found it really delicious. For this next dinner, I'm making a buffalo chicken pizza, and I have shared this on my channel before. It's one of my husband's all-time favorites. So I'm just starting off with my smaller crock pot, and I'm going to be making my chicken in here. So I'm using about 2 chicken breasts. Mine were frozen. You can use fresh or frozen for this. And then I'm taking the Hidden Valley seasoning mix, and I'm gonna add in about 1 tablespoon of that seasoning mix, along with about half a cup of buffalo sauce. I always just like to use the Great Value one. I actually used a little bit less than half a cup on this day just because I was running low, but I would recommend about half of a cup. And then you're gonna cook that on high for 4 hours. Once it is fully cooked through, make sure to temper your chicken and make sure it's fully cooked, and then you're going to shred it up. I always like to use my hand mixer just to make sure it's really nice and finely shredded for this recipe. I definitely don't think you would want big chunks of chicken on your pizza. You want it to be very finely shredded. And then I'm just adding this back into the sauce in the crock pot, and I'm gonna let that cook for another like 10 minutes while I'm getting my dough ready. Now heading over to my island, I'm just gonna be getting my pizza dough ready to go. So for my pizza dough recipe, I always like to use the KitchenAid one. I've been using this one for years. It's super easy to mix up in the KitchenAid. I don't even have to knead it by hand. I just throw it in my KitchenAid. Super quick and easy. So I'm gonna have this recipe linked down below. I didn't show you how to make it just because it's really simple. And you can also just use a store-bought crust if you want and make your own that way if you don't want to fully make it from scratch. Either way will work totally fine for this recipe. So I'm just getting that spread out in my pizza pan, and then I like to bake this in a 415-degree oven for about like 7 or 8 minutes, just until it starts to firm up a little bit. I like to kind of pre-bake it before adding on the rest of my ingredients. Once that crust has pre-baked for just a couple of minutes, I like to take some ranch dressing and just do a really thin layer on the bottom. This is kind of going to work as the sauce since we're not going to be adding on a typical pizza sauce. And then you're going to take all of that really awesome shredded chicken. This is a nice buffalo flavor. It's not super spicy though. My kids will actually eat this pizza no problem. They like it too. So it's definitely not super spicy. Of course, it's going to depend on what wing sauce that you use, but the mild one that I use is not very spicy at all. So just get all of that shredded chicken added on there before adding on your cheese. I like to add a combination of Colby and Monterey Jack cheese to my pizza, but you can definitely swap that out for whatever your family favorite cheese is. Definitely add some cheese on there, and then I do another little drizzle of ranch on top, and then I'm gonna bake this in a 415-degree oven for about 15 minutes. Once it comes out of the oven, I'm just taking some melted butter. I do like to add on a little bit of ranch seasoning for some extra flavor, and then I'm just brushing this all along the edge of the crust. It adds so much flavor. It makes it really nice and soft and delicious. But if you like buffalo chicken, you are going to love this pizza. It is one of my husband's all-time favorites, and he always asks me to make this, so I definitely recommend this one if you like buffalo chicken. Well, that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope that you all enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. I share a lot of really quick and easy recipes, crock-pot dinners, meal prep, and other food-related content. So make sure you're subscribed, and I will catch you all in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
As a young girl, the fields were mine. We played hide and seek for hours, raised our shadows among the pines. So offshore, playful and free, without a care.